Hello.
Hello, and welcome to the Retained Recruiter Show. My name is James.
And my name is Jo. Welcome, everybody, to episode 34. James, can you believe it? Episode 34.
I'm so impressed it was 34. Long. I wasn't really counting, but great. Anyway, Jo, today we're joined by another Jo. Delighted to welcome Jo Emerson, who's the MD of the Holtz Group. So, Jo, why don't you explain what the Holtz Group is? And I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. I know we've been looking forward to this for quite a while. So, over to you for a moment.
Thanks, James. My name is Jo Emerson. As you've just said, I'm MD of Holtz. So we are, I think, relatable to you guys. The name you'll have heard of is McQuaig. So we are the licensed European distributors of McQuaig personality profiling. So that would be the word survey, if you've heard of that, or the mental agility test. But in essence, that whole suite of tools that assists in recruitment and development of individuals. I've been working with Holtz now for about 6 years, and prior to that, I've worked in various businesses, anything from pharmaceuticals to kind of smaller businesses. So I have quite a breadth of experience in dealing with kind of issues around retention, around recruitment, and yeah, delighted to be talking to you guys today.
Yeah, we're delighted to have you. And I think some of the big issues are around, not just around recruitment, they are really around retention. We're going to talk about that today. And obviously, as MD of the Holtz Group, obviously we work with you very closely on the McQuaig Institute. You also work on some other systems that we're going to talk about when we get to it later on, when we're going to talk about some good topics. So what have we got coming up today, Jo Gregory? I might have to say it like that.
I know, how difficult is this? And normally it's all the Jameses, and today it's all the Joes, which is fabulous. I must prefer it this way around.
Still all the J's. Look at that, we've got 3 J's. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, maybe this is our thing moving forward. We can only have people on that name begin with J. I'm really looking forward to today as well, Joanna. I think it's going to be brilliant. So we're going to talk about all things psychometric, all things assessment. So namely, how to identify candidates that best fit the role. Objectively rather than subjectively. We're going to talk about the pitfalls of comparing candidates against each other and why we shouldn't be doing that. And then we're also going to talk about what I think is a really big topic at the moment. So how do we go about removing bias from the process, and how do we use our process to promote D&I? And then finally, we want to talk about the importance of leading with quality over quantity, which I know is a bitter pill to swallow as a recruiter. But yeah, that's all the things we're going to focus on today, James.
Yeah. Okay. So, Jo, let's jump into the first topic. And it was interesting because I saw a little article today from Darren. So I'm sure Darren's probably watching in and listening. And he's saying how we're going to talk about the importance of assessment of candidates. But actually, I think it's not secondary. It's where it fits in the jigsaw of pieces that go through. So, the first element I think is really important to us, Jo, is the job survey. So do you want to sort of give us an overview of how that differentiates us from any other system? Because I think one of the things when we talk to people say, oh, there are so many systems out there, and they'll throw names out that we all know and gather. But whilst everything comes from the same body of science, it's about how you use it to deliver the market. And the thing I always say to all of the clients who we deal with at iIntro is, the thing that we like about McQuaig specifically is it's great for recruitment. Yeah, I mean, I know you might say they're all good for recruitment, but actually some specific things. So why don't you talk about the job survey and the importance of that and why we use it in that particular way?
Yeah, thanks, James. I think McQuaig's real strength is supporting people in recruitment. And the reason for that is it focuses on the role first. So, and by that, we mean that there is a great opportunity with the job survey, as you've just mentioned, James, to actually identify, have a consultation with your clients around what they're looking for in the role. I think it's very, very easy to, within a recruitment process, to essentially hire in your likeness or in the likeness of somebody else within an organization. And, particularly over the last few years, I think we can also all say that we've seen huge change to roles. Salespeople are a classic. One salesperson in one organization can look very different to a salesperson in another organization. And I think really the real sort of opportunity with the job survey is to actually focus on the role first. So have that piece of consultation with the hiring managers, with the other stakeholders, to understand really what the role needs, what the company needs that role to look like before then you start going out to market. And I think it helps frame everything for everybody. I think it gives a great consensus piece for all the stakeholders. And, the job survey itself produces a brilliant report with some great interview questions that, again, are purely about the role. They're not relatable to candidates or individuals, and they can be used before you even assess candidates, as perhaps part of a first round interview process potentially. So I think there's an awful lot there that the job survey can give you before you've even had to go out and really invest in sending out assessments to individuals.
I think it's so important, James, isn't it? We've had so much great feedback about the job survey. I think traditionally, even if a recruiter has used a psychometric in the past, it's testing the candidate. But what are they testing the candidate against? They were testing it against the client's opinion of what they think they need in the role. And I think that's quite that's a challenge for two reasons. Firstly, like you said, does the client really know what they need and want in that role? And also, if you have got multiple key internal stakeholders who are all involved in the hiring process, are they all consciously or unconsciously looking for the same things? One of the big pieces of feedback I think I've had recently is where there was a particular client company, and there were two people involved in the hiring for that organization, and one of them was completely convinced that they were never looking for the same thing, but they couldn't quite work out why, and it was resulting in them taking on the wrong people or mismanagement of people who were coming in who one of them didn't think was right, and at the end of it, they were able to turn around to each other and say, you see, I knew we were looking for completely different things. And it's not until you can shine a light on that for a business. And I think that's really insightful for a company.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, the opportunity is for you to use multiple job surveys with each stakeholder. And then actually what you've got with McQuaig within the platform itself is the ability to compare those results. So, you're saying that you want somebody who is X, somebody else wants something that's Y. And then it gives you that opportunity to have that actual discussion up front before you've set your benchmark, before you've set what you're looking for. And I think it just opens the conversation up to really nail what it is you're looking for before you go to that interview process itself. Really, really, really important part of the process.
I think there's a couple of things that you said there, Joe. And before you answer, this isn't a question coming in, but I've realised that Joe Emerson is on about a 2-second time delay. We've got satellite delay down to Henley-on-Thames or wherever Joe lives. Not mean to give you a address. What you said that's really important there was consultative, because this is the whole approach. This is called the Retained Recruiter Show because we focus on consultative selling. And if you're selling on a consultancy basis rather than filling a job basis, that's very different in terms of what we do, you are offering that initial consultation first of all. And the phrase that we use, Joe, and obviously we've taken this from you, so I'm not trying to steal any thunder here, is we assess the role before we even think about assessing the person. And what you were saying, Joe Gregory, is odd. What you were saying, Joe Gregory, is when you get those multiple stakeholders where they all think they all know each other, what they initially do, and we see this a lot when we talk to clients of iIntro, because they talk about these experiences. What the employers do is they coalesce around the job description, and they all sign off and agree a beautiful job description, and it says 5 years experience working for a tier 1 company or whatever it may say, and educated here and educated there. And those hard skills and that knowledge, skills and experience is set, and everybody can coalesce around that. So they all think they're looking for the same thing. And then Joe Emerson, the bit you said is it's how we use multiple job surveys where we profile in some ways, the subconscious elements of what people are looking for, that you then bring this consultative piece where you say, actually, there are a few of you looking for slightly different things. Now, there's nothing wrong with looking for different things because it's entirely normal. It's about how we make people aware. That even sounds like a fax machine. I didn't think they still existed.
Someone wanting the job survey now, just phoning Joe up saying, I want this job survey.
But so bringing that piece together, and again, it's the second part of the consultation, because you've done the initial consultation to say this is what we're going to do. You then come in back with the results of this comparison report, which compares everybody. And it's not to say that you've got to sort of pat everyone into the same shape. It's about making them consciously aware of the differences, so they can overcome that bias that says, I don't like that person. Well, why don't you like them? I don't know. I just don't like them. They just said something, or they looked at me funny, or something like that. And this really is that consultative piece. And the bit, Joe Gregory, that we see with recruiters a lot is obviously the fear initially, because most recruiters are used to picking up a job, and this is you've got to do the work beforehand and think, oh, my clients won't do this. So interested in your thoughts on, when people say to them, the clients won't do this. Either Joe could answer that, but let's have a look at go with Joanna Emerson.
Yeah, go with the expert on that objection.
Okay. No, that's okay. I think you'd be surprised actually at how many clients would be interested in doing that. I think if you actually start to talk about retention and you start to talk about the cost of a bad hire, and when you sort of dive deeper into those conversations around, okay, well, we urgently need somebody, but actually, how has this gone previously? How many people have you recruited? What's been your previous approach, etc., etc. And then you start to talk through, okay, well, if we get the role right in the first place and we actually focus in on this, actually our success rate is likely to be greater based on the fact that we're actually, like you said, not just focusing in on the editable highlights of someone's career to date in the form of their CV, but we're actually going to look at whether that individual is going to be able to do the job for you, is going to be, going to fit the role, because the role itself is requiring somebody with this behavioural profile. Somebody once said to me that a McQuaig report doesn't lie. If that role is unsuccessful and you go back to that word survey result, or that job fit between the job survey and the word survey, generally speaking, the answers of why that role hasn't been successful is there in that report.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned the word survey then, so I think it's a good time to come to that. So the job survey is
Before
filled
we
in.
do, Joe, there's something else I wanted to say about job surveys before.
Go on then.
Because again, Joe touched on
Okay.
a really good tool about the fact that there's some great interview questions which aren't around people, they're questions, and that is a fantastic part, because actually these questions aren't just for the employer, they're actually for the recruiter when they're doing their long listing elements. I think that's really important. I think the other thing that's in that report, Joe, and obviously these are an integral part of what we do with our intro in terms of helping recruiters become a little bit more consultative in that approach, but there's also some great resume or CV reference checking questions as well, in terms of to help you when you sort of get to the stage when you're offering somebody to go back and ask these people their former employers questions. So there are some really good little elements which often go unseen in there, but are all part of this sort of collection to say how we can sort of help it do it. So now I'll shut up, Joe, and let you talk about the next piece.
No, it's fine. I need to ask you a question actually, Joe, about the interview questions that come through the job fit interview guide, because I've got a genuine question, but I'll leave it for a minute. So Plyman's just asked a question as well, and I think I can kind of tag this in. So my question is 1A and 1B. So 1A is, what is a word survey? So who fills it out, and what do they do with it? And then 1B is, Plyman's question is actually really good, and I've had this a couple of times as well. So IT recruiters believe that sometimes testing IT developers isn't working because they're coming across as introverts in the test. Now, I think there's a trick to McQuaig. Well, not a trick to McQuaig, but there's a reason why McQuaig and the job survey come into account here, don't they? So that doesn't happen, so that it doesn't test someone's capability and willingness against an ideal. It tests it against what they actually want, isn't it? So what is a word survey, and how does it stop us from incorrectly assessing people for jobs? Okay, so the word survey is the personality profiling tool that I think a lot of people will be familiar with. It is slightly different to other products that are on the market on the basis that it's not a normative assessment. So there are two different types of assessment. One is called normative, one is ipsative. We are actually an ipsative assessment. And what that means is that we're not actually comparing the results with a norm group. We're actually comparing it against the individual's preferences. So what you get is an understanding of the person's natural temperament, that person's natural preference in behavior, and how they're performing in their current role. So you then get to understand from that whether the person is actually stretching or flexing within the role itself at the moment. For recruiters, that's quite interesting, because if you do actually do a job survey with the individual, sometimes people can present as being the perfect candidate in front of you, and it actually could be that they are used to behaving in a certain way because that's how they're behaving in their role at the moment, but that may not be their natural temperament. And the natural temperament is what we're looking to match overall with
the job survey. So we know that candidates stay longer or happier in their role when they feel like it is more comfortable to their natural temperament. So that would be how I would suggest using why I would suggest using the word survey over other normative assessments. The word survey itself roughly takes sort of 15-20 minutes to complete. It's not timed. We do recommend that if people are starting to take a really long time to complete, then they may be overthinking it a little bit. But it's very straightforward. And off the back of that, there are various reports that come out of that are really, really useful for recruiters specifically. The word survey report itself is a really in-depth document, and it focuses in specifically on the personality profile itself, the kind of features and kind of, if you like, kind of behavioural interests of that individual. There is also a selling style report, there's a leadership style report, there are interview questions that come with the word survey itself, and then there's a huge value add reports at the end of that, which are really something that as recruiters could be passed on to hiring managers as well, to help with successful onboarding of those individuals if they're successful in the role. Other reports that come from the word survey are an executive summary report, which is kind of a shorter report, which would be really useful if you were perhaps wanting to present, say, 4 or 5 candidates over to the hiring managers. They give a sort of shorter snapshot of that candidate's profile without having to have all of the reports included. There's also a candidate feedback report, which can be sent directly to the candidate, so they immediately get some feedback on how the results of the assessment have come out for them. So overall itself, the word survey does provide a huge amount of information, both for you guys as recruiters, but also for the hiring managers themselves.
Yeah. Can I put you back on the spot with Plarman's question, because we've sort of skirted around it a little bit. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Joe Emerson, because I know that the point Plarman's getting to. So we work with a lot of IT recruiters. We work across all industries in many ways, but IT recruiters are very, particularly when, as we mentioned there, as Joe mentioned, on the developer side, people saying, I don't need personality profile analysis. I don't need it for these people, because as long as they can code and they can prove they can code, I don't care what they do. So the question from Plarman is really, how do we overcome that objection where IT recruiters think that this type of science is not for their type of recruitment? Is it valid, or are they wrong?
Well, that's a really, really interesting question. Thank you for putting me on the spot, James. I think,
Thanks, Plarman.
I think IT consultants still sit as part of a team. They still have to communicate. They still have to. Be able to fit into the culture of an organisation. And actually, for any hiring manager to understand the individual, be aware of that as they're coming into that organisation, can only be a benefit for anybody who's taking that on board. Yes, maybe IT consultants potentially are more introverted. But equally, it's good to have that knowledge up front, because not everybody's the same. And actually, what could be seen to be quite introverted behaviour could be that just that person's quite analytical, and actually they are more open and perhaps require more communication. Perhaps understanding their learning style, for example, is something that's really valuable to the organisation you're recruiting for. So I would say yes.
Yeah, sorry, it's that 2-second delay. Carry on.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know why we've got a 2-second delay. Apologies.
It's the north-south divide, Joe. That's what it is. It's getting wider.
No, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I think I think in terms of having more information up front before making a hiring decision always seems to make sense. And if you're able to understand the individual and how they like to learn and how they're going to behave individually as somebody that you're having to manage, or alternatively, how they're going to sit as part of the team, has got to be only a good thing before making a crucial hiring decision.
Indeed, and Catherine and Don have made some good points here as well. So thanks to you for your comments in there. Yeah, that people are human, and wouldn't it be better known? And this is where I think some of the reporting that you say is towards the back of the word survey, which is really about the to help with the onboarding and the ongoing coaching of the individual to understand how to manage people is part of the value set in terms of what they do. And then, do you want to throw? What's the question from Darren, Joe Gregory? Because I'm just not.
So Darren's it's a big question, but I understand that McQuaig has been tested and assessed by various psychological institutes and universities over the years. From my research, the key metrics, reliability, I can't read, and validity scores of the test accuracy are extremely high on McQuaig. Is this correct? He says.
Thank you, Darren. Yes, it is correct. As you know, we are validated by the British Psychological Society. As a result, if you've been through our training, level 1 or level 2 training, that is a strong recommendation from the BPS. And as a result, yes, I can confirm that the test accuracy is extremely high. So you are correct, Darren. Thank you.
And I've found that it's really interesting. I've been doing a fair bit of internal interviewing this week. In terms of the individuals, and I've been using the candidate feedback as well as the executive summary reports. And it's always interesting to ask the candidates, do you think it's a fair reflection of yourself? And honestly, I can't remember the last time, I don't think I've ever had anybody, to be honest, say, no, I don't think that's me. Now, I know we're only giving them a snapshot of the report, and it's a bit more in depth than that. But it's always interesting when people say, yeah, that is me, when they've done it, relatively promptly. So from that side of things, I think it's such a valuable tool to help them. Obviously, with regard to both Plum and Darren, don't worry about this. The question's really good, Darren, because I knew that Joe knew the answer on that one with regard to the psychological side. So that's a good question. And Plum is saying the point is, what we see here at iIntro is IT recruiters, they just push back on this point. They say, and it's because they're working in such a fast-paced environment. They think, and it's our job to educate them on this, that those employers don't really care. But the answer is we've got to do something better to help them understand. Actually, it's a value-add proposition. We help employers make more informed hiring decisions to improve the ongoing retention of those staff. Now, Joe Gregory, let's get us back on track. We might be running off and making sure we're not going to hit these topics.
Yes, do you know what, we're getting there? I think we're going in a loose roundabout kind of way today, which is good. That's good. We'll still get to the points at the end of the day. So let's talk about the pitfalls of comparing candidates against each other, because when you have nothing to compare them against other than a job brief, and let's face it, a job brief is literally it's based on knowledge, skills, and experience, really, rather than other things. So it's based on can they do the job rather than will they want to do the job for a long period of time, which I think was your point there, Joe, is that is also a massive factor that we need to take into account, which McQuaig does help with. So when a client is faced with 4 CVs, and all 4 CVs, let's talk about IT recruitment for a minute, all 4 CVs say that this person can do the job, how does McQuaig help that client to make a more informed hiring decision rather than just going off the information that's on a CV?
Okay, so we're coming back again to the job survey. So if we focused on the job survey and we've gone out to hiring managers and they have determined that this particular personality profile is something that actually either has worked previously, so it may be that they've had somebody very successful in the role previously, and that's another way you can actually benchmark, is by using somebody that's been particularly good in that role. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing that is to, like I said, design the role. And we would recommend that you do that on a regular basis with clients anyway, even if you're recruiting for the same role within different organizations. Different organizations have different requirements of the people that work for them. And it's really, really important to understand what they are. And that could come down from anything through kind of various competencies that they may measure people against internally, or it may come from, like I said, just previous kind of strong values internally within the organization. So we would recommend that you use the job survey so that you're focusing on what they are looking for, rather than saying, okay, actually I've got these people, we know they've got the experience to do something and do the job well. It's about, as you said, how are we understanding whether those people are going to do the job for the company, for the individual that you're recruiting for, and up front, you're going to be able to get those results, be able to see that job fit in terms of those individuals' personalities, to give you another layer. We call it level 3 assessment. It's that understanding of, will the person do the job for you? It's not about their capability, because we know they're capable, but it's about understanding, are they going to be motivated to do the job for you? And that is what will set them apart.
And I think that's really key, actually. And I was having a conversation with someone just before this session about those 3 levels of assessment. So the 3 levels are that appears to, isn't it? So they appear to be a fit.
Yes.
The second layer is can do. So based on knowledge, skills, and experience, they look like they can do the job. And then most recruiters tend to stop there, and we think on paper, this person's a fit on paper, but actually there's more to it. That level 3 is then the will do. So will they be motivated to do it and do it well and do it for a long period of time? And I think that's where, as recruiters, if we want to start, leveling up our service and being more consultative and looking for candidates that stay in positions so we can improve retention rates in businesses, we've got to be looking for that, because it's not just enough that the candidate can do the job. They need to be motivated as well, don't they? As well as having the skills to do it. And I think that's a real missing link sometimes.
I think there's a couple of good points that come out from that. And I think they are. Yeah. Sorry, Joe. That's that time delay again. Go on after you.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say that certainly research has shown that level 1 and level 2 assessments are reasons why people hire, and level 3 tends to be the reason why people decide to part company with that individual. So having that knowledge up front before making that crucial hiring decision is absolutely 100% the right way to go. And that's where McQuaig offers that difference for recruiters.
All right, I'll say something now, because I'm past the time delay, I think. So it's been quite. So sorry for people listening if we've overlapped. It's not me being rude. So there's a couple of points that came out in the questions from a couple of people that I just want to sort of pick up from the points that you both raised there, because the expression that we use at iIntro is our process is about putting in place a recruitment strategy that implements multiple layers of scientific and objective assessment to help employers make more informed hiring decisions. But we also have to look at the experience for a candidate. And there's 2 points I want to bring out here. The first one is that we focus a lot with the employers to help them, and we talked about the fact that we have a 96% retention rate, we have a high, a very low level of attrition, which is great for the organizations and all the things go there. But actually that's got a huge benefit to the candidate as well, because that 96% says, actually, we assess you and evaluate you carefully, so this is going to be a good career move for you. I think Darren brought that point up, and I just want to run that one home as well. This is we have a very rounded solution. It's not just about focusing on employers, but it's also focusing on the recruiter and the candidate as well, that triumvirate. And then the other point, which I think is really important, particularly in a candidate short market, which we all know we're in at this moment in time, because we've used expressions today, such as job fit, and people might be thinking what that means. And it's when we actually take the job survey, what the client has told us and we've agreed with them they're looking for. We take the candidate's word survey, and our ideal is to match that. When we get a nice match, we'll feel warm and fuzzy inside. But actually, the reality of the market at this moment in time is sometimes we're going to have people who are either a potential match or even, God forbid, does not match. And the very flippant response, if somebody doesn't match, it means they don't fit. Let's do away with them. And that isn't the case, because what we can do, and the phrase we use, you both touched on this one, is what the report shows us is what's the natural approach or style for that candidate. We sometimes say people will always revert to type. So we always know that that's where they're going to head to. And once we know what that is, but if the requirements of the job or the style of the manager in the job is to do it in a different way, well, we can help that manager manage that individual, because it may be the only person. And I'll give you a little example. We're working with a global mining client. We've worked with them for several years now. And I always remember them saying to me, they were looking to recruit into Rwanda. And they said, we struggle to get one candidate. Never mind a short list of 4. That's just impossible. And they said, if we do this job fit, James, and he doesn't fit, we don't care. They're still going. I said, of course, I understand that, because we're in a very candidate short market. But what you can do is you can help the employer manage, on board, coach this person successfully, so they can actually, because you can change your managerial style, but people can't change their natural style, because they're always going to go back to it. So I think we have to be aware that these tools aren't just about getting perfect matches. It's about helping the employer manage their team effectively. And I was talking to one of our clients again last week, Joe. You know Paige and James, I think we had on this show. I was talking to them about someone they were trying to work with, an employer, And this employer is not very. He's trying to manage everybody in his team in exactly the same way.
Yeah, probably in his way. In his way of managing.
And our job now is to coach the manager to help him understand, actually, those people need handling differently to those people. And those people need handling different to those people. So you can adapt your style so that you don't just treat everybody the same, which was basically beat everybody over the head. Sorry, that's probably the wrong thing to say, but you know what I mean by that, not literally. So, so I just wanted to raise those points, answering some questions from a couple of the questions that are in there about how we can help candidates, and also how this isn't about always finding a perfect match and getting disillusioned if you don't find them. It's about helping the employer make helping them manage the new employee and onboard them in a better way than they have done before.
Yeah. I am aware of time.
James, sorry,
sorry, go on, Joe.
Please do.
Sorry, time delay again. Apologies about that. just to James's point, I was just going to say that if you can be aware of that information up front before you take somebody on, then you're already winning. You've already added value to the person that you're recruiting for, which is what's going to set you apart as a recruiter to the competition as well. So if somebody's got a good experience where they feel like that they've had that consultation initially to get that role right, and then on top of that, they're being given that valuable insight into the candidate, into that individual they've decided to employ, whether they match or don't match, at least you've made them aware of that and given them some tools to help support them with that successful onboarding piece.
Yeah, which can only help to make the business better at managing people, and managers better at managing people. I think, a lot of the stuff that we talk about is about retention, is about retaining your staff. But I think retention starts with recruitment, and if you can find a more scientific way of assessing people, and I think that's great. But also, I think we've got to talk very briefly, I think, about the fairness and the equality of using a psychometric when it comes to evaluating people for your business as well, and how it can really help a business it can help to support a business's D&I strategy as well, can't it? Or so how can McQuaig help a business with that side of things, Joe?
Well, I think the natural kind of opportunity with McQuaig is the fact that you're not comparing candidates. So you're not saying, well, this person's better than that person. By focusing on the role itself, just by what we talked about, you're not talking about, well, this person doesn't fit that mold or this person doesn't fit that mold. What we're saying is we're focusing on the role here. This is what the role needs. So immediately you are able to rule out that comparative piece. And I know there are several articles at the moment that talk about the dangers of comparing people and individuals. And we all know that everybody's an individual, and that's what we should be celebrating, right? So I think McQuaig really, really supports that well. The second part to that, of course, is that as a recruiter, you can make that assessment piece completely anonymous. All the reports are available in gender neutral language, so you can present candidate 1, candidate 2, depending on how you choose to label your candidates moving forward. If you really wanted to be very hot on your diversity and inclusion, and actually remove gender from the piece, remove actual candidate names, and then you're purely going on the merit of that assessment and that job fit, that really does help support that D&I piece.
Yeah, we actually have an iIntro client that uses this with one of their clients. It's a very large organization that they use it with, and they won the business from that company on the basis of how they could use the platform and the iIntro platform and McQuaig to promote this company's D&I policy that they had, and they did exactly that. The whole process was gender neutral. They didn't have pictures on there or any reference to gender, and it was fantastic. So they've won business on the back of that. So it's a really big piece.
So final question.
Yes, yeah.
What's the importance of leading with quality over quantity?
Well, yeah.
So this question is for Joe or for me?
You, Joe. You, Joe. Not me. One of the pushbacks we sometimes get from this is, aren't we making our jobs harder as recruiters? Aren't we making jobs harder to fill? And aren't we, assessing candidates so much so that we have less candidates from which to choose, or from our clients to choose? So how do we kind of push back on that, I suppose, and lead with the quality element over quantity?
I think there's two arguments here. I think the first one is, of course, the natural kind of feeling is that you want to put as many people forward to give as much choice as possible. But I think there are opportunities to be able to understand who you've got first without assessment. Like I said, by using the job survey, you can ask the same questions to everybody and kind of narrow down your field of, and then actually putting forward candidates that you feel really confident about, that you know you've gone through a rigorous, robust process with, actually is then going to feel much more like you're presenting quality to your clients. And I think ultimately is going to make their hiring decision much easier, because if you've got 10 people there and then they've got to go through an interview process with 10 people, actually that's not overly respectful of their time. I think actually if you're able to put 3 or 4 good quality candidates forward, I think then actually you are much showing that you're a much higher quality recruiter, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe, in the sense that the quantity over quality angle is, one of the things we talk about at iIntro is how we help clients make more informed decisions because we actually have done the assessment and evaluation. The reason why they're seeing 10 candidates is because nobody's done the evaluation and they're having to, I'll know the right person when I see them. We've done all that groundwork with the job survey. Say, listen, these are the people that you want. So our shortlist may only be 2 or 3 people, but of the 2 or 3 people, it's not uncommon for us to hear, I could have hired any of them. And that's because we've assessed the role rather than the person and then brought the right people to that. So I think we've done that. And just I want to answer one of Liz's questions. And thank you for your comments as well, Liz. Isn't the old adage like recruits like? And this is to help clients doing that, falling into the trap of just recruiting people like me, mirroring, self-imaging what we want to be, to actually say, get that assessment of the whole team so you can actually sort of take those opinions and evaluate them. Listen, this has been a fascinating discussion.
James, can I just make one point that I think is really important, is that everybody on here is recruiters who are listening to this, who are thinking, oh, could I use this for my clients? Do you know what? They should use it on themselves as well. When recruiters are just as bad at recruiting for their own businesses. So if they want to make more informed hiring decisions, get this for your own business. It'll make a massive difference.
Joe could hear me winding up for the finale then. So Joe, I'm going to ask you, Joe Emerson, I'm going to ask you just to wrap up with your final little bits of advice for people, and then I'll do the wrap up, Joe Gregory.
Okay, no problem at all. I think thank you firstly for allowing me to come on and talk about McQuaig. I think my advice to all recruiters is the more information that you have up front that you're able to then present forward is going to essentially make you look like you are much more competent and add much more value to your clients.
Here.
Gregory.
I agree. Do you know what? I'm such a fan of McQuaig. I've used a lot of psychometrics in my time, and I'm a massive advocate for it. Don will know that. I'm always talking about it during the training. So it's great to have you on. I think it's brilliant, and I'm pretty sure that if people want to hear more about it, then they can contact you, can't they, Joe? Look you up on LinkedIn, or maybe contact us on the link.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we can do there, it's about how we help recruiters put together a consultative recruitment process. So if you just want to find out a bit more about how we might be able to help you, you've got a link up on the screen there, www.retained15.com. That'll book you some little time with us, but it has been a fascinating subject. I think we may have over a little bit. Thank you for listening and staying with us, but I think the topic's worthy of it in such a, in the markets in which we work in. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening. We look forward to seeing you again on the Retained Recruiter Show. So from me, James, it's goodbye.
And from me, Joe, and I'm going to change my name the next time you come on, Joe, because this has been very confusing. But we appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody, and take care.
Thank you.
Yeah.